Example of my class notebook, which my students access through Teams. We actually use this quite often, even though I have seen it used more in a high school setup. I think it still has a place in primary school, especially with students that are one-to-one. Here's an example of our literacy lesson. And in our literacy lesson, in my contents page, under writing, I've explained to students what our focus would be for this term. We go through our goals. We obviously identify the structure of an informative report, and we, shed some examples on what are the different types. But then into the actual lesson part, you can see the way it's structured over here. Students understand that anything that is in green or red is activities or things they actually have to do. So for instance, with a partner, discuss the following questions. So we watched this story on Owl Babies, which is a narrative, and then we posed the question to the kids, is this a fiction or a non-fiction text? How do we know? And this is where we started working out the similarities and differences between non-fiction and fiction. From this, students went to a Venn diagram, which is again located in the contents page. And as a class, in my model session now, we went through and listed the different structure aspects of each text. And students were interested to work out that the only thing they shared was the title. Once kids were able to work this out, they had a really clear understanding of what is expected from them in an informative text. Back to the activity which kids flick through as we navigate through the lesson. Again, we went through informative text and we discussed certain examples. The next part of the lesson was the activity section, which again is located in the content library, where students are able to now go through the activity, which is a direct relation to what we've just been doing. And also, this activity over here will be posted on Seesaw, so parents are aware. These notebooks in the contents library, obviously the students can't change or edit them, so my lessons are pretty much structured. If I'm ever away or out of the classroom, you could clearly see that anyone can come into the classroom, go to the top of the page, and just flick through. We also did have a little bit of an extension lesson because we had a little bit of time towards the end, where we looked at our story in the beginning and said, how can we change this text to make it a non-fiction text? And this was me just checking the understanding of my students, and I was actually surprised because they started discussing words such as facts, conclusions, needs a purpose, add a conclusion, more information, and they started being really specific in, what are some of the things we need to talk about, how they hunt, or more food. From this part of the year, I was clearly able to see that my students had a real grasp on what an informative text is, and that was only the first lesson. So very, very impressed, and see what comes from it.